Let every voice sing. Thank you very much, Bethune-Cookman University Concert Chorale. Our gaze is set, our gait is steadfast, our goal is service, and our mission is clear. Those are the words from Mary Mcleod Bethune that have been our guiding light throughout this statuary project. Today, we proudly share with you this historic milestone in an unprecedented, never been done before, journey. This masterpiece, created in Pietrasanta, Italy, by master sculptor Nilde Comas, will stand with us on temporary display here in our hometown of Daytona Beach, Florida, until its permanent placement in the U.S. Capitol National Statuary Hall. Welcome. All of you with us today share a passion for the legacy of Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune. And all of you, in one way or another, and in many ways, many very large ways, have donated, given your time, talent, and treasure to support this statuary project. In addition to the so many distinguished guests that we have here today and in our speakers that you'll hear from this morning, I am pleased to recognize a few individuals without whom this project would have never occurred. So please allow me to recognize Florida Senate and House bill sponsors, Senator Perry Thurston and Representative Tom Leek. I would also like to recognize a very special person that we work with very closely under the leadership of Secretary of State Laura Lee, the Director of the Florida Department of State, Division of Cultural Affairs, Ms. Sandy Shaughnessy. This is a beautiful opportunity to focus on the story of our pride of Florida, Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune, and create a far-reaching awareness of her life achievements and her legacy. Our thanks to all of those who have made this financially possible, over 340 unique donors. Please allow me to recognize the major sponsors who have provided gifts for $25,000 or above, because that was just a wonderful way of showing their support that made this also happen for all of us. So allow me to recognize the Bethune-Cookman University alumni, Brown & Brown Insurance, represented by Cece Hyatt and Powell Brown, thank you so much. The Racing and Recreational Facilities District, represented by the Commissioner Chair, Carl Persis. Our exhibit presenting sponsor, Florida Blue. Thank you all from Florida Blue. The Lohman family, the City of Daytona Beach, Florida Healthcare Plans, and ICI Homes. Thank you, Farouk, and thank you, Nellie Lipoli, and as well, Glenn and Connie Ritchie. So thank you to those amazing sponsors. Let's give them a round of applause, please. It is also my pleasure to extend appreciation to all of the co-hosts. When we first contemplated bringing the statue to Daytona Beach, we knew that one of our goals needed to be to ensure that everyone in our community has the opportunity in the next 60 days, free of charge, to come see this amazing masterpiece statue of Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune. And so I'd like to recognize all of the co-hosts that have made this possible. It's a large collaborative group, and they're listed on the front page of the beautiful commemorative keepsake magazine that all of you have, The Pride of Florida. In 2018, nearly 4 years ago, the Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune Statuary Fund was created. This 501c3 organization includes a strong, diverse, agile board of directors and community leaders. We have persevered despite enormous delays. As the board enthusiastically took on the challenge of raising the money for the marble statue, we too took on the additional opportunities to do more than only the marble statue. And we asked master sculptor Nilda Comas to create another original statue, a bronze statue, that will stand proudly in Daytona Beach when it is unveiled in February of 2022 in Bethune Plaza in the Riverfront Esplanade Park. Yep, wonderful, thank you. In addition to the bronze statue that we commissioned after we worked through the logistics and the fundraising for the marble statue, we expanded our mission again and have commissioned a full-length feature documentary to be created on the statuary process and on Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune, as well as a K-12 curriculum module. We also sponsored 5 young graduates of Bethune-Cookman University to join us in Pietrasanta, Italy, and then took on the challenge of additional fundraising to bring the statue to all of you here in Daytona Beach. So may I please recognize that amazing group of individuals who serve as board of directors of the Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune Statuary Fund 501c3 organization. Please stand when I call your names. Bob Lloyd, Mary Greenlees, Trustee Jennifer Adams, Jim Cameron, Dr. Michelle Carter, Kathy Crotty, Dr. Joyce Cusack, Danielle Garrett, the Honorable Derek Henry, Sherry Lloyd, Nellie Lipoli, Dr. Hiram Powell, the Honorable Billy Wheeler, Bethune-Cookman University Vice President of Institutional Advancement Glenda Nolnay, and of course, the very talented artist that created the statue, rich in symbolism and beauty, Nilda Comas. And now, please welcome Mr. Evan Smith, pastor of Morning Star Baptist Church, for our invocation.
Good morning. Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune was an educator, a missionary, a civil rights activist, and a woman of faith. Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune believed in God and the power of prayer. As we continue to recognize her legacy of beauty, boldness, and brilliance, what an honor it is for us to pray her prayer, to serve as our prayer of invocation. Let us pray. Father, we call thee Father because we love thee. We are glad to be called thy children and to dedicate our lives to the service that extends through willing hearts and hands to the betterment of all mankind. We send a cry of thanksgiving to the people of all races, creeds, colors, and classes of the world over, and pray that through the instrumentality of our lives, the spirit of peace, joy, fellowship, and brotherhood shall circle the world. We know that this world is full of discordant notes, but help us, Father, so to unite our efforts that we may all join in one harmonious symphony for peace, brotherhood, justice, and equality for opportunity for all men. The task performed today with forgiveness for all our errors, we dedicate our dear Lord to thee. Grant us strength and courage and faith and humility sufficient for the task assigned to us. Amen.
And now please welcome the Honorable Derek Henry, Mayor of the City of Daytona Beach, for our Pledge of Allegiance and his remarks and welcome.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the flag for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I stand before you as the mayor of Daytona Beach in our city's proudest moment. I am joined by several of my colleagues on the City Commission, Commissioner Danette Henry, Commissioner Ruth Traeger, Commissioner Paula Reed, and Commissioner Juanita May. Your seats are here. Oh, Commissioner Stacy Cantu, excuse me. Dr. Bethune recognized and acknowledged that she was the heir and custodian of a rich and seismic heritage. So it is with us, Daytona Beach. To the Bethune family, to all who helped to bring this project to fruition, and I mean all. We too are the heirs of a rich and unassailable legacy, a hallmark in courage, a shining example of American exceptionalism, the gleaming representation of what is possible with faith and dogged determination and unyielding pertinacity. Yes, we are the heirs and custodians of a great legacy. When history records how we as a community responded to our role as custodians of this great legacy, let the record read that Daytona Beach passed the test with straight superiors. The rich and engaging tapestry that we represent from all across this community, and indeed all across the nation, is an example of what we as a community have achieved and how we have grabbed a hold of the legacy of Dr. Bethune and allowed it to live and breathe and take greater life and greater shape in our community. As a member of the committee, I have observed several things that I want to illustrate with you as it relates to our journey together. Things that I think that Dr. Bethune's life personified. Number one, she taught us how to live in harmony. Number two, she taught us how to achieve despite obstacles. We have learned, like she learned, how to serve even when fatigued. We all have learned how to dance when your feet are hurting. Finally, today we celebrate with our focus on the arduous journey. There were times that Dr. Bethune did not feel like pressing on, but she pressed on anyway. Daytona Beach, we have pressed on. There were times in our journey when things were not perfect, but we made a way anyway. There were times in Dr. Bethune's journey, in her legacy, in her life, when she did things because of Daytona Beach, because of the support that she had. But as we all know, there were also times that she did things and she achieved in spite of the environment that she was in. And I think that is the lesson that we, the heirs and custodians, should take. Sometimes we will have a harmonious journey. At other times, there will be a difficult journey. But either way, if the goal is worthy, press on. And if we take nothing else from today, let us all remember that the legacy that we celebrate is a legacy of an example of what we are, and most importantly, what we aspire to be: a greater, more dynamic, more thriving community that embraces the fullness of Dr. Bethune's legacy. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless this great legacy that we are the heirs and custodians of.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. And now please welcome the Honorable Billy Wheeler, Vice Chair of Volusia County and also one of the founding members of the Statutory Board of Directors.
Good morning. What a monumental moment in Volusia County's history. As a resident, Vice Chair of the Volusia County Council, and a member of the Statutory Board, I am humbled and honored to be a part of this truly historic event. Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune amplified all that is great about humanity. She came from humble beginnings, dedicated her life to lifting people up, walked with world leaders, and founded Bethune-Cookman University, one of the crown jewels of Daytona Beach and Volusia County. 66 years after her death, this remarkable woman continues to lead and inspire us to put aside our differences, to fight for social justice, and to serve our community. These goals were paramount 100 years ago, and they are even more important today. Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune is a beacon of hope, and her vision of education, equality, and empowerment lives on. I do want to take one moment to introduce County Council that is here with me. There's the Chair, Jeff Brower, Danny Robbins, and Barbara Gertman. Is there anybody else here? I did want to recognize the rest of my council. Thank you so much. It's an honor and privilege.
And now it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Pat Garrity, President and CEO of Guidewell and Florida Blue. They are our presenting sponsor today.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm Pat Garrity, President and CEO of Florida Blue, Florida's Blue Cross Blue Shield plan. And here in Daytona, you know us as the Florida Healthcare Plan. If you're from Florida Blue or the Florida Healthcare Plan, put your hand up, please. Yes, we are well represented here. We played a small role in bringing this incredible statue to Daytona Beach, and we're proud to have done it. I'd like to first offer my gratitude to the Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune Statutory Fund for your leadership in driving this much-needed and much-celebrated recognition of Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune. Her impact on our state and our nation deserves recognition far and wide. At Florida Blue, we are deeply committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our mission of helping people and communities achieve better health requires us to lead the way to health equity for customers and communities. We know we cannot achieve health equity without racial equity. We're proud to embrace a culture within our organization that not only accepts differences, but we leverage and celebrate them. We are strongly committed to taking bold and measurable action to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, as demonstrated by the creation of our Equity Alliance. This alliance is focused on addressing systemic racism and health inequities for Black Americans in the communities that we serve. In addition, we pledged our commitment to invest $25 million over the next 5 years to address racial injustice and health inequities. For this reason and for so many more, our organization is proud to be part of honoring Mary Mcleod Bethune, who was a beacon of hope and a pioneer and champion of civil liberties. Having a statue in her honor on display in the U.S. Capitol is a tremendous demonstration of our state's commitment to equality and a reminder to all who pay homage to the important accomplishments of those who paved the way. Again, thank you for allowing us to be part of this momentous occasion. Let's all continue to celebrate the many important steps that have been taken to drive equality and create healthier communities, but let us all remember that there is much more to be done. And let us also remember that next month, November, the Florida Blue Florida Classic. Hope to see you there.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Hiram Powell, Interim President of Bethune-Cookman University, and my friend, Dr. Powell.
Give me a moment. I've had the pleasure of toiling at Mary's Place for 41 years. So if through this process I need a moment, I hope you will give it to me. Hell's Hole, garbage dump, Bethune-Cookman University. Hell's Hole, garbage dump, Bethune-Cookman University. Who would have believed it? You've heard several people allude to the foundation of what Dr. Bethune was, and I'd like to quote some of her quotes. With faith, nothing is impossible. Without it, nothing is possible. Faith in God, but also faith in oneself. Faith was the cornerstone of Dr. Bethune's legacy and existence. Trained as a missionary, she never forgot that God, the power of God, and the responsibility to use that wisdom and that understanding to make a difference for all of humanity. And while her platform was certainly, to use the then current term, colored people, it was in the context of how everyone and no one should be left behind, and that we should all care for the least of thee. She was an amazing woman. She is an amazing woman, and what a legacy she has left us. I knew lots of people would say great things about Dr. Bethune, so I wanted to sort of limit my comments. What I want to use this opportunity to do is to thank all the great people who, first of all, envisioned this possibility, made sure the possibility happened, and brought us to this day. First, I want to thank the BCU trustees, administration, faculty and staff, students, alumni, and the many citizens of our state who advocated for Dr. Bethune's selection to Statuary Hall. All of you, I thank you. To then Representative Patrick Henry, and Senator Perry Thurston, who you've met earlier, and a special thanks to Representative Kathy Castor, who marshaled the effort through our nation's capital. Kathy, thank you. I know they've been recognized, and Nancy is very good about recognizing everyone else. I'd like to recognize Nancy Lohman, who has been the heartbeat Thank you. You heard Mayor Henry talk about in the good times, in the storms, pushing through it all, she gave a damn. Did I say that? Yes, I did. Through it all, she would not be stopped. Through it all, she would not let any of us rest. I made that trek to Italy with the group, and it was like being in Mortal Kombat. Because we were up 6 o'clock every morning, we were up in the mountains, we're out on the trails. We passed up, as we was going through the mines from where the marble had been extracted for the statue, which is where Leonardo da Vinci extracted his marble for his statues. So this is a special thing, folks, that we got behind us here. And we even passed signs that says, be careful, falling stones. And at some point, we were so high up in the clouds that it got cloudy and we couldn't see. And at that point, I told my wife, I think it's a trip we probably should have missed because we may not make it back down. I also want to thank some other folks who worked tirelessly for this journey and all who put hands together. Mary Henry talked about and others about the power of this community where I've lived for the last almost 45 years. Love it. Nobody's been able to pull me away. Plan to be here until I go home to meet the great maker. I can't think of a greater city in the state of Florida than ours, Daytona Beach. Last, but certainly not least, the gifted sculpture of this amazing work of art gracing our presence today, which you will soon see, the incomparable Nilda Comas. As I close, I wish to announce the Mary Mcleod Bethune Research Institute. This institute will be launched early next year. It will bring top researchers, speakers, and panelists to share their exciting work on Dr. Bethune and contribute to the growing collection of works available for her study. The institute has been in planning for more than half a decade and is made possible by the work of staff and volunteer historians and archivists, including a former director of the Mary Mcleod Bethune Council House in Washington, D.C. And this effort has been led and marshaled by Dr. Tasha Yeomans, Dean of Library at Bethune-Cookman University. Dr. Yeomans, would you please stand? Finally, I'd like to thank all of you who are gathered here today to honor our great founder. She is truly one of our crown jewels of our city, our state, and our nation. Thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you.
And now it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Tom Labasso, President of Daytona State College.
Good morning. On behalf of the Board of Trustees and all of Daytona State College, I want to thank you, Nancy, and the entire statutory board for allowing the college to play a role in honoring the legacy of Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune. Before I go on, I'd like to just recognize we have a couple of trustees here as well. Bob Lloyd, who's on the committee. Bob, if you recognized. There you are. and Bob Davis. There you go. Thank you, Bob, for being here. And I don't think anyone else is here at the moment. Okay. When you think about the impact that Dr. Bethune made on thousands of students who have graduated from the university that bears her name, you don't automatically think of Daytona State College. Though her ties to Daytona State are not as well known, the foundations of what we have today at DSC is through the efforts of Dr. Bethune. The college traces its roots back to the Volusia County Vocational School, which provided training for trade professions and later industrial jobs during World War II. When the war ended, a plan emerged to expand the vocational school into a comprehensive junior college, but a campaign to acquire property from the federal government was met with roadblocks. It was a frustrating situation for Mary Carl, the school's director, but she knew exactly whom to approach for help: her friend and her colleague, Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune. Already a well-known civic leader and a close friend of First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, Dr. Bethune accompanied Mary Carl to Washington to personally speak on her behalf. The story has been told that while the three women were having tea at the White House, a deal was struck and 29 acres of land, along with 55 buildings owned by the federal government, were transferred to the Volusia County School Board. A few years later, that piece of property developed into Daytona Beach Junior College. And though the name has changed since, our college is still at that same physical location, continuing to fulfill the vision of pioneering educators such as Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune. So when I say Daytona State College would not be where it is today without her assistance, it is true in a very literal sense. Our campus is part of her legacy and is a gift, one that we strive to honor every day by bringing to life her passion for education. Thank you again for allowing Daytona State to serve as a temporary home for this statue and for being able to honor the life of Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune in this manner. Thank you.
And now it's my pleasure to welcome the Honorable Michael Waltz, United States House of Representatives.
Thank you, Nancy. So I had a real treat this morning. I was able to spend about an hour and a half on the phone with a Dr. Brigady, who was the first African American to graduate University of Florida's medical school and was one of Mary Mcleod Bethune's students, and his mother was one of her students. And he recounted to me a story that I'd never heard of Dr. Bethune as a young girl, about 12 years old. And she was riding in a cart with her father, and they rounded the corner. It's in South Carolina. And they rounded the corner, and they came upon a mob that was about to lynch a black man. He was strung up. They were screaming. As he told the story, her father told her to lay down in the cart, was worried, obviously very afraid that they would turn on them, and sped off and told her not to look up. Well, of course, being a precocious young 12-year-old, she did. She looked back and about to witness this awful and heinous evil. And as he told the story, as she looked back, she saw the local sheriff, white sheriff, pull up, arrest the organizers, take the noose off the man's neck, and pretty forcibly disperse the crowd and hauled the organizers off and saved that man. And he was recounting this as he was in 5th grade, sitting in a local elementary school. It was one of her last speeches in 1955, dedicating the elementary school. But the purpose and the moral of the story was at that moment, she decided she would dedicate her life to bringing goodness and bringing light into darkness and bringing people together in harmony. We all know the story from there. She dedicated her life to education. What I find just so incredible is that she started the school with $1.50 and a whole lot of faith in five students. But what I also found amazing is just a few years later, just a decade later, maybe 2 decades later, she had built up the school from nothing, had dormitories, had students, and had started a surreptitious but very successful, apparently, campaign to register black voters, and particularly women black voters, after women won the right to vote. Well, the local Ku Klux Klan apparently didn't like that very much and marched on the campus. And as he was telling me the story, and many of you know the story, but it was amazing to hear someone who had heard it firsthand, that she hid the students, she dispersed her faculty, and she stood alone in the courtyard. Think about that. Think about that bravery and that courage that this woman represents, that we all could use, that she stood alone. And while the Klan marched in, I think they took one look at her because apparently they marched, they marched right off. I'm a Green Beret by background, and we often find ourselves alone in very difficult and very dangerous places, and we specialize in surreptitious, quiet, unconventional campaigns. I can tell you what, Mary Mcleod Bethune would have made one hell of a Green Beret. We would have been proud to have her. But what I love about her arc and her history is then she becomes the highest ranking black woman in the cabinet in the 1930s. And a piece that I didn't fully appreciate, I don't think everybody knows, and then sat as a founder and helped write the charter for the United Nations to focus the UN on humanity, on human rights, and on minority rights around the world, which we still today see being abused in horrible ways around the world. But her arc, only in this nation, as imperfect as this nation is, but only in America could that arc happen in one generation. Well, as I was talking to Dr. Brigady, the reason I was talking to him, as I mentioned, he became the first black man to graduate from University of Florida's medical school. His son, is a dear friend of mine. We grew up together in Jacksonville. He became the first black valedictorian at his high school, the first black brigade commander at the U.S. Naval Academy. He became the ambassador to the African Union and is now the first black chancellor at the University of the South in Swanee. Just think about how many sparks and how many ripples she started with $1.50 faith in 5 students, and how many lives and how many generations she's impacted. We have a long way to go as a country, but Lord knows we've come a very, very, very long way that we should all appreciate, and I think is embodied in this statue that stands amongst us. So I certainly want to recognize so many powerful voices in our state legislature. It's our state legislatures that decide which 2 statues represent each state in the Congress. And Dr. Bethune will be the first African American to represent any state in our nation's capital. So I certainly want to applaud our state legislature, Governor Rick Scott, who signed it into law, Governor DeSantis, who passed, who made the formal request of our capital to have Dr. Bethune there, and I want to recognize the fact that in 2019, when Congress, Kathy Castor knows, we don't come together, my colleague, about much across our Congress these days, but we came together in 2019, along with former President Trump, and put permanent funding in place for historically black colleges and universities and tribal and Hispanic serving institutions. And I think that deserves a real round of applause. None of these schools will have to wonder year to year what their budget will look like and what their funding will look like, because we came together in her image to put that permanent funding in place. So I'll leave you with this, and this is what Dr. Bethune left us with. As I was speaking to my dear friend this morning, who was recounting his time sitting in a classroom with Dr. Bethune when he was in 5th grade, he told me that when she passed in 1955, everyone was abuzz about her last will and testament. And everyone was trying to figure out, how would she impart her legacy? What would she leave behind? Who would she leave it to? And her last will and testament was published in the August edition, 1955, of Ebony magazine. And this is what she left behind for our community and for our country. She said, "I leave you love. I leave you hope. I leave you faith. I leave you a burning desire for racial harmony. And I leave you, above all else, a desire to help the next generation of young people come together in all of these ways." That's what she left for all of us, and it will be, I think we'll both be smiling when we walk by her, and I just look forward to seeing her in our nation's capital, and that will be first and foremost on my mind. Love, hope, faith, racial harmony, and a desire to help the next generation. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Also with us today, it's my pleasure to welcome the Honorable Kathy Castor, the United States House of Representatives, representative of the 13th District.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm the representative from down I-4. I'm Kathy Castor. I represent the Tampa Bay area in the Congress, and I'm really very honored to join you today. I'm especially happy to be here with my good friend and colleague, Congressman Waltz, and all of you. It is such an honor to be here as we celebrate Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune and our journey to the United States Capitol. So, Mayor Henry, to the entire Daytona and Volusia family and the Statuary Fund, the incomparable Nancy Lohman, and Bob Lloyd and Bethune-Cookman and President Powell, everyone in the Brown and Brown family, I am here to thank you. Just as Dr. Bethune and this community about 100 years ago worked to build greater understanding among people and races, you now are sending a symbol of our commitment to equal rights, hope, and reconciliation to the United States Capitol at a time when America really needs it. But I wanted to share a little secret with all of you to make you even maybe sit up a little straighter with great pride. You know, usually states that determine it's time to update their statute or send a new statute to the United States Capitol, they fund the effort. They pay the artist, they pay what it costs to send it, to organize the entire endeavor. Well, that didn't happen this time for whatever reason. But Daytona and this community was not going to be daunted by that. Right, Rep. Kuzak? You took up the mantle to ensure that this would happen, that we would follow through. And I want to thank all of you. And again, to Nancy and the Statutory Fund, to Hyatt and CC and Powell, the entire Brown and Brown family, Bob Lloyd, the Bethune-Cookman family. Pat Garrity and Florida Blue, thank you as well. And I think we will continue to build upon this effort as we continue the journey to Washington, D.C., because this is a story that must be shared with all people. Curriculum in the schools, people coming together to learn about her legacy, how important it is now more than ever. You know, I was sworn into Congress in 2007. And you know what it's like to give tours of the beautiful Capitol to students and people from back home. And it was always interesting to introduce them to Statuary Hall and the fact that every state has 2 statues. You all know who the other statue is, by the way. Who is it? John Gorey, the inventor of air conditioning. So yeah, hooray for him. And students always get a kick out of that. But I tell you, when they say, well, who is Florida's other statue? And you would use that as an opportunity to teach. But the question would always hang out there, why? Why is that the case? Why has that been the case for 100 years, when here in the state of Florida, certainly our values have changed, thankfully, thank goodness. The great diversity of this state certainly has grown, and that's made us all richer for it. We had made inquiries about updating the statute, because states go through this they can go through it routinely, but it wasn't until 2015 and the shooting and massacre at Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, where we made the Congressional delegation made another inquiry to the state of Florida. That isn't it time now for a better representative of our great diverse state to represent us in the United States Capitol? So thank you to the state legislators who answered the call at that time. I think the speaker was Krista Fuley, who referred it over to a number of bipartisan state legislators, and to Senator Perry Thurston and his colleagues. It was a bipartisan effort in the state Senate. But the Department of State, I'm so glad that Secretary of State Laura Lee is here. Jerry, thank you, and everyone who has been there. They actually put it up for a vote. It was an online vote, so Floridians could vote on who the next representative would be. Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune blew them all away. She was the top vote getter by far. And you know who was close behind? James Weldon Johnson, Harry T. Moore, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, George Jenkins, the founder of Publix, was there too. But the vote was so strong for Dr. Bethune that the legislature, even if they thought, well, maybe this other deserving Floridian should be considered, there was just no way to do it. I know. Daytona, again, you got it done. You answered the call at that time. And now, as Representative Waltz said, unbelievably, it will be the state of Florida that has the first ever African-American person represent their state out of the 100 statues in National Statuary Hall. I'm so pleased that Jane Campbell, the president and CEO of the U.S. Capitol Historical Society, has decided to join us here today. Because Jane will help now build that bridge to a wonderful celebration in Washington, D.C. early in the year. I also love that we're also setting another historical point here. Do you know that Neil DeComas, our beloved sculptor and artist, will be the first Hispanic sculptor to have a work of art inside the United States Capitol? Bethune would love your industriousness, Daytona, all of you. She would appreciate people coming together when so many other forces are pulling us apart, pulling at our fabric. So all of us can take great pride that the state we love will be represented by a great educator and civil rights icon. Her legacy in the sculpture will provide a symbol of unity and hope and reconciliation in our state and for this country, so that we continue that march to racial justice and equal rights for all. I'll see you in Washington early next year.
And now it's my pleasure to welcome the Honorable Laurel Lee, our Secretary of State from the great state of Florida, Department of State.
I am so honored to be here today on behalf of Governor Ron DeSantis and the Florida Department of State. This is a great day, not just for those of us who are gathered here together, but for all Floridians. For today, we honor the life and work of Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune. We celebrate the incredible work of master sculptor Nilda Comas, and we rejoice that soon our great state and all Floridians will be represented by this fitting tribute to the legacy of Dr. Bethune in our nation's Statuary Hall. Ms. Comas has reached into an unformed block of Italian marble, drawn upon her years of experience as a master sculptor, and has found this striking tribute of Dr. Bethune within. Indeed, this Italian marble is the same marble from which Michelangelo's David was formed. But this inspiring work of Dr. Bethune is more than a statue. You will see carved into the sides of the 7 books bearing much of the weight of this statue are the gifts that Dr. Bethune left us in her last will and testament: love, a thirst for education, faith, racial dignity, hope, peace, and courage. Many of us hold these ideals closely to represent the people of the great state of Florida for many generations to come. On behalf of the Department of State and Governor Ron DeSantis, I thank you all for being here and joining together to celebrate this great day for our state.
Thank you. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce a woman who is beautiful inside and out and amazingly talented, as you're going to see shortly, the one and only master sculptor of our statue, Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune, Nilda Comas.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. And I am so impressed with your love for Dr. Bethune. I love this lady. She captured my heart, and she inspired me. And here I have a lot of thank yous to do. This was a gift from the National Statuary Committee in Italy. They gave me that, and I feel so honored to wear it, to have it here with you. I have, I'm not a politician, so I have something written to say. We're all gathered here to be part of the great state of Florida. It is with great joy that I welcome you to share this great moment. Thank you for being here. From my heart, I thank the many wonderful people that made this moment possible. it has been a beautiful journey. Nothing stopped us. We had the pandemic, but so what? We continue, right? So first, please allow me to thank the government of Florida. Please stand. All of those who are part of the government of Florida, please stand. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. This representing the great state of Florida. Please stand, thank you. I want to thank the Statutory Committee. Please stand, Statutory Committee. You worked so hard on this project. Thank you. Thank you. Without the Statutory Committee, I believe that we would still be waiting for the appropriation of funds to start this project. Each of these members of this committee has used all of their talents, their efforts, context, and influence to raise the necessary money. I thank them again and again for using all of their creativity for completion of all the known and unknown tasks that came with this project, and the vision to come up with ways to educate the public on Dr. Bethune's legacy. With special thanks to Nancy Lohman and Bob Lloyd for their leadership and relentless work guiding us to make this project possible. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bob. Nice to see you. I want to thank the Daytona College, also Daytona State University here. Thank you so much for allowing us to have this beautiful space. And I want to thank my personal friends who have believed in my abilities and dreams. Please stand. All my personal friends who came. Thank you so much. Thank you for your love and your support. I want to thank my family. Please stand. I thank my family. I especially want to thank my two brothers, Tito and Alberto. Please stand. Tito is a graphic artist, and he designed the posters that we had in Pietrasanta all over the city. He also helped with welcoming the 54 people who came from the United States for the unveiling of the sculpture and the blessing ceremony in Pietrasanta in front of City Hall. Those who attended, please stand. Thank you for coming all the way up there. Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. My brother Alberto, he designed the base for the beautiful sculpture that you like so much. Alberto is an architect, and he designed it, and then the architect of the Capitol immediately approved it. So that says a lot for our works, Alberto. Thank you. I also want to thank my daughter, Stephanie. Please stand. She's already standing. For her support all these years, ups and downs, and she's always positive. Yes, Mom, you can do it. Come on, let's keep working. Yeah, you can do it. And I want to thank my companion, Alex. Please stand. Also for his love and support and for his logical thinking. Okay. I don't have much of that. Anyway. It has been a 4-year journey, especially complicated by the pandemic, but worse every moment. We found a way to work together safely and to achieve our goal. That was quite a challenge, but we did it. As many of you know, I feel that I have been preparing for creating the sculpture of Dr. Bethune all my life. As long as I remember, I have been an artist. My father said to me, I know you were an artist, you were born an artist, because your first words were not mama and papa. You pointed your fingers and you said, ay, que lindo, ay, que bello, oh, how beautiful, oh, how pretty. And he said, people always look. You were 9 months old and you were pointed at things and saying that. So I have been an artist for always, since I remember. At 26, I was half owner of Fort Lauderdale Real Estate, a boutique real estate office with 35 salespeople. For 17 years, I did that. 28 years ago, I decided to be a professional sculptor. In 1996, I received the Andy Warhol Scholarship to study 2 years for a master's in fine arts. This was the highest scholarship ever awarded by the New York Academy. I graduated cum laude in 1998 after maintaining 3 jobs as assistant to 3 male professors. After not accepting offers to teach at Pratt Institute or Parsons School in New York, I kept my goal to move to Pietrasanta, Italy, and learn how to sculpt marble. Pietrasanta is a 1,000-year-old artist colony on the base of the Alps by the Mediterranean Sea, in the state of Tuscany. I started as an apprentice at one of the most prestigious studios in the world, and later became an assistant to some of the most famous sculptors. Sculpture has been a profession of mostly males. I had to prove myself over and over to gain approval of the maestros of the marble studios and bronze foundries. Because of my achievements, I was chosen in 1999 to work on the largest relief in the United States, A Call to Holiness. It was 52 feet long. CNN filmed us as we worked in the 15 feet up in the air. And at the time, Congressman Mcleod Bethune, who had done his portrait when he was mayor of Fort Lauderdale, he invited us to come to the Capitol and have a special tour with their art curator. While there, my coworker, Leo Muti, there were 2 of us who were chosen out of the 13 people, and he started crying in front of one of the sculptures, and I said, Leo, what happened? And he said, I am standing in front of a sculpture I did when I was 18 years old. The sculptor did not know how to sculpt a marble, so I did the sculpture for him. And now I'm standing here in this beautiful building, which is the most important building probably in the world, making all decisions that affect most of the world. And this is my sculpture, and I did it when I was 18. So at that time, I looked around, it's beautiful. I said, wow, what an honor is that? So when I received the invitation for the competition, I looked at it and I said, I'm going for this. I really want to have a sculpture. And especially, I have lived in Florida for 45 years now. And so I want to do the sculpture that represents the state of Florida. There were 1,600, it was a competition, 1,600 people applied. And the finalists were 10, and there were 9 men. When I walked in there, my daughter was with me, and she looked and said, wow, Mom. I said, well, there's 9 men and myself. I'm used to all these years working around this. But so I was the last one that was making my presentation, and I observed, and I thought, well, they all work in bronze. And from the beginning, I thought this sculpture needs to be in marble, because that is the highest honor that you can give a person through history, is a sculpture in marble. Marble, it's the stone of light. And so as I looked at the sculptures at the National Statuary Hall, the ones that were marble were the ones that stood out. So that's why I had my mind already made. But guess what? I was the only person that could sculpt in marble of the whole group. And so I said, well, when I think of Washington, I think of the Washington Monument, and I think of Lincoln, and I think of the monument of many monuments in the city. They're all marble. And Martin Luther King is in stone. So I made my presentation saying that I can sculpt in bronze or marble, but I want to do this sculpture in marble. And so when they announced my name, my daughter and I, she just screamed, and it was just a great moment. It was a great moment. It has taken, as I said, 4 years because we had all these delays. And also, there were delays on approving a sculpture of Dr. Bethune. And thank you they finally signed all the paperwork, but it did take a long time. And so here it is. We have it, and the long journey was really worth it. It was sometimes that, I was wondering about this project. I decided to really educate myself after I had been to the Capitol in Tallahassee and heard and seen 111 votes for Dr. Bethune against 1 vote against her. This was definitely bipartisan. I said, wow, this lady, I have to really get to know her, So there was a lot of research that I did. I went to Maysville. Her family invited me there. And unfortunately, Macy Ferguson is no longer with us. She was so excited about this sculpture. I had brought a cap and gown, and she wore it for me, and I already knew how I wanted the sculpture, but I wanted to see how it looked on her. And she was so gracious. She put it on. I took photographs that helped me a lot later on. It was her holding the flower. And Kathy Castor, thank you so very much, Kathy. She invited me to come up to Washington. I was up in Washington, and she took me to the National Statuary Hall, the African American Museum, and the Library of Congress. And the Library of Congress, when I arrived, they had a table with 286 photographs on a 3-ring notebook already for me. Dr. Moses was so gracious. And she also had me wear gloves and read through all her papers, so many important papers that Dr. Bethune had written. As I started to read it, then I said, I want to hear her voice. Is that possible? And she said, of course, yes. So they had her speeches on as I was looking and reading through all of this incredible pieces of paper. And that moment is when it really hit me. I said, you know what? I feel like I know her now. It's something really, I felt she had this incredible voice. She was soft. She was using such intelligent, perfect wording. She was strong, straight. She was of what she was saying, but she said it in a way that was not offensive and with love. That I captured that. So when I was making the sculpture, I thought about this, and immediately, the first thing I did after I came back from Washington, I made my first model. I made 4 models during this. And the first model was 1 foot in plastiline so that I could take it with me to Pietrasanta. And I found the Legacy Studio in 2003, and at that time I decided I don't really want to do just pretty things, I had my working galleries, and I said, I want to do works of importance that leave a legacy. So I named my studio The Legacy. So this project was so perfect. I was so in love with her and my inspiration. So immediately I started the model, even though I didn't have all the approvals yet. But I was picked the sculptor, and I had already met, thanks to Kathy, who was the architect of the Capitol, and explained to me everything, gave me all the paperwork. So I followed that. I followed my own plan. I had the inspiration, so I said, I'm just going to go on with it, because people don't realize how much there is to this. And so I created that model. I took it to Italy. I doubled it in size to 2 feet. I worked the classical way. I didn't use robots. I used a pointing system that comes from the Greeks, and double it again to 4 feet. And then with the pantograph, I double it again to 8 feet. And all of these models had to be put into plaster, and then from plaster, we put the point with a maquineta that has 2 needles, and we copy into the next and size. And so I had the marble with 3,000 points. So here comes COVID, all right? Thank God I am a resident of Italy, and I am a resident and an American. I'm a citizen of the United States, born in Puerto Rico. And so that allowed me to come back and forth. Everything was closed. I flew with 9 other people, the plane, to Milan. It was unbelievable. All the airports were closed. It was so scary. It was like a spy movie, you know, something like that. And I had to wait from November to October to start the marble. I started the marble after I got the approvals. You know, you cannot make any mistakes here or any changes, so I did. And as I approached Pietrasanta, this beautiful rainbow was there. And I said, you know, everything is going to be okay. And I arrived, and in the studio, all my contacts, my friends in the studio for 28 years that I've been working there, the old men, they all came. You know, they're retired now. And they said, we heard about what you're doing. If you need us, we're here for you. And this is COVID. Everybody, you know, in Italy, there were no chairs in the piazza. There were no tables. There was nothing. Everything was closed down. But the studios, we continued to work. And we worked, and thank God I already had the models that I needed. So I completed the sculpture around the end of June, just before that our friends came, the 54 friends that came to Italy for the unveiling and the blessing. And it was wonderful working. I thought of her. I could hear her voice. I just fell in love with Dr. Bethune and everything that she did. I read and read about her. When I had free time, I looked up in the internet, and so much, and so many of you that helped. It was just wonderful. You know, all the people that I met through this journey, all the friends that I've made, it has been really, really wonderful. And I want to leave you with some words here that, wrote. We have 67 sculptures permanently placed in the city of Pietrasanta. Children growing around among art, music, theater are educating their souls as they grow. It has been proven that exposure to the arts and culture will help them develop as kinder human beings and happier adults. Surrounded by beauty, they unconsciously live in a world that satisfies that which separates us from animals. They are more creative and civilized as adults. Monuments communicate through a collective understanding of that which makes us human. Figurative sculpture can give us an understanding through our senses that is different of what we get through other arts. They are all important. Each of the arts is different in the way of communicating. Music calms the soul or can energize us. Color can affect our moods. Arts are a way of communication to our higher selves. We need art like we need food. The arts help nourish our economies. In my opinion, we need a Secretary of Culture who will oversee that museums, monuments, performing arts, music, theater, art education, artists, and all related to culture will receive its share of funding. Patrons and donations are not enough. A plan for culture to flourish in our economy now and in the future so that each citizen in every economic level can learn to feed their soul through culture. We have a Secretary of State, we have a Secretary of Business, we have a Secretary of Agriculture, we have a Secretary of Education. How about a Secretary of Culture, eh? I'm not a politician, I'm an artist. Jeffrey Annan, a former Secretary General of the United Nations, said, "Artists have a special task in the struggle for peace. Artists not only speak to people, but speak for people. Art is a powerful weapon against ignorance and hatred. Art represents the human conscience. Art opens new doors to learning, to understanding, to freedom and peace among people and nations." Thank you so very much, everybody. Thank you. Now, stay up here. All right, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And so it's my pleasure and honor, before we continue with the rest of the program, to provide our Nilda with a few special gifts of our thanks and appreciation. And so if I could have Bob Lloyd come forward too, and I'm going to tell a quick story. Many of you probably know this story already, but there's a special story about Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune when she came to the United Nations in Switzerland to represent all of us. She came upon a rose garden with multicolored flowers in it. And one of the roses in this rose garden was a black rose. And she looked at that black rose and all the other colors of the roses, and she said, "This really is an interracial and international garden. This represents all of humanity. We should all be thriving together." And so that symbolism and much more symbolism is all a part of the sculpture that Nilda has created. So on behalf of everyone in this room, we'd like to provide you with these two gifts. First.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, look at this.
And Nilda, those black roses were imported for you, and then we also have a black rose crystal handbag. No woman can have too many handbags.
Well, not everybody knows, but I'm a tango dancer. I am a tango dancer, so this will come out to me. Thank you so much. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yes.
Wow. Yes, I just want to show it off. Yeah, with the black rose.
Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to welcome back the Bethune-Cookman University Concert Chorale. Let's hear it for the Bethune-Cookman University Concert Chorale.
Is it possible that we can get this microphone on? Great, great. One of the most befitting songs and appropriate songs for today is a song that actually was first dedicated by this arranger, named Carter, to Dr. Martin Luther King. But if you know the history of Dr. Bethune and her influence on Dr. King, you will understand the significance of it. If I can help somebody as I travel along, that my living will not be in vain.
And now I think it's the moment you've been waiting for. So after we unveil the statue, I want to share with you that we have a series of photographs that will be taken that we will share with all of you, especially those people that are in those photos. So we want to invite all of you to have your photo today taken with the statue, but please know that we have a series of photos after we unveil the statue that we'll be doing first. But I invite you to stay as long as you'd like to make sure that you have the chance to come see the statue up close and personal and enjoy and appreciate the symbolism that will teach you the story of Dr. Mary Mcleod Bethune through the symbolism of the statue. And so if I could please have the 10 speakers that were a part of today's program come forward and we will unveil the statue. I'd also like to invite Bob Lloyd. Okay, Nilda, thank you. Come closer because we're going to squeeze in. We'll leave the state of Florida, if we could, just kind of showing in between. Yep. No, we can get up to there. You'll be just waiting. Everyone wants to do it.
Are we going to push this out? Yep, we're going to, pardon me. We just have to push this back.